The Dutch have one of the most beautiful tiara collections in all of Europe, and one of its crown jewels is the Dutch Sapphire Tiara, often mistakenly referred to as the Dutch Sapphire Melrio Tiara. It is a gorgeous, stunning piece. It has some of these really, really unique design elements I don't feel like we see in too many tiaras because it sort of has the look of a fringe, but it's not a fringe. It sort of has the look of a kokoshnik, but is not a kokoshnik. I feel like it has this incredibly unique design. And of course, it's been famously shown off by Queen Maxima of the Netherlands, including at the inauguration of her husband, King Wilhelm Alexander, but has been worn by other queens at inaugurations of either themselves or another member of the royal family. And so this has a long storied history going back to the late 1800s. So, guys, today we are going to explore the history and the looks of the Dutch Sapphire Tiara. Again, one of the most impressive and beautiful within the Dutch collection. But if you guys haven't been to Royal Fashion News before, hello, my name is Brittany, and this channel is for all those who have a passion for royal fashion. That, of course, includes tiaras. We also do best and worst dress lists. We kind of have sometimes Fashion Friday, where I show off some fashion items I got that are either reminiscence or actually, in some cases, the royal owns the exact same pair of either shoes or outfit or whatever. And so I share those as well. So if you guys are interested in any of that, feel free to hit that subscribe button. I would absolutely love to have you back. And if you would like some sparkle in your own life, because I know I watch these videos and I look and I watch the tiara sparkle and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. I do have a relationship with Anna Lucy Diamonds, which create lab diamonds. And I have these gorgeous 2 carat diamond stud here's, which I absolutely love because diamond studs are such a classic. I also have my 7-stone eternity band, my tennis bracelet. So if you guys are interested in any of that, if you use code Royal20 on their website, you shall save 20%. And of course, I am wearing what I am wearing, but there are tons of great, fantastic, and amazing looks on there. And of course, it is getting close to Christmas time. So if you are thinking of maybe shoring up a bit of a wish list, go ahead and check that out. There will be some amazing and wonderful things on there. So, guys, let's go ahead and get into the Dutch Sapphire Tiara, which I mistakenly, and I edited out, called Melrio again, because I had heard Melrio, but apparently many people have confirmed that it is not that. So it is set, in case you were curious, with 655 diamonds and 33 large Ceylon sapphires from Singapore. And this includes one very, very impressive 40-carat sapphire. And what's interesting about this tiara, and we talk about this a lot, is that some tiaras are very, very flexible. You can make them like different heights. Like the Dutch Stuart tiara is actually incredibly flexible. They have at least 4 different settings for it that Queen Maxima has debuted. And this tiara originally had elements that could be removed. And so it was actually a much more flexible piece when it was made in the late 1800s. And it was made by, since it's not Melrio, Maison van der Stichel, which is a Dutch jewelry house. And it was made by King William as a gift for his wife, Queen Emma. And I can't remember exactly the age difference, but I want to say there was like about 40 years age difference between King William and Queen Emma. And what's rather interesting about their relationship is that when he married her, he already had grown children. And those grown children, they were boys. I think there were 3 boys, or maybe he had 3 boys. One of them died as a child, but he had a couple of heirs. But what happened was, as he went throughout his reign and after he married Emma, they had their daughter Wilhelmina. Both of his sons died. And so all of a sudden, Wilhelmina, even though it was entirely not anticipated, she became the heir apparent. But of course, since there was a very, very large difference in age between Queen Emma and King Wilhelm, when he died, Queen Emma became regent as Queen Wilhelmina grew up. And in case you're thinking about the price, now granted, we don't really know the price of a lot of jewelry within the royal collections because they are so old sometimes. You can't really even post them. There's not a receipt there somewhere. In some cases, they're utilizing jewelry or gemstones that have been in the collection for so long, like there's not even a record. But we do have one for this particular tiara. It was purchased for 100,000 Dutch guilders, which would have been around 1.2 million euros or more today. The commission also included 2 bracelets. So Queen Emma wore this set numerous times throughout the late 1800s, and most notably in I think if I understand correctly, the last time she actually officially wore the tiara was at the inauguration of her daughter, Queen Wilhelmina, in 1898. And this could have been sort of a reflection of the fact that since she is moving on from being regent, that she doesn't feel either the need or that it's appropriate for her to wear such a grand tiara. And so when Queen Emma died in 1934, she left her tiara to the then Princess of Orange, future Queen, Princess Juliana. And this tiara was actually worn by Juliana to the coronation of King George VI and Queen Elizabeth in 1937. So actually, Queen Wilhelmina never wore this tiara as far as we're aware. I always find that very interesting how sometimes members of the family do, or a tiara skips a generation, because Queen Margrethe of Denmark, she actually has never worn her mother's Danish ruby paré tiara. And so she has never worn that particular one, which has a long history within the family and actually goes back to the court of Napoleon. But Queen Ingrid, her mother, left that actually to Queen Margrethe's son, King Frederick. So how the jewelry moves throughout the families is very interesting. And when it comes to this particular tiara, it was put within the official Orange Nassau Family Foundation in 1960s. And so royal foundations, if you're not aware, at least when it comes to jewelry, is a way to keep the collections together and avoid things like inheritance taxes and avoid these pieces of jewelry, which are not only artworks, but actually a very intimate history of the family, because most of the time these pieces of jewelry actually flow through the women of the family. So it's very much a connection to the past. It's a family thing and all these sorts of things. So they try to keep the collections together. At least the smart ones do. Denmark doesn't really have something like that. So they've actually seen, even recently, tiaras leave the country, leave the family, even one in case of divorce. So these are very, very good things to have within the family. And this was also around the time Princess Beatrix started wearing this tiara. She was the Princess of Orange. And I find this really notable because when it comes to Queen Beatrix, she had a tough time with the weight of tiaras. So she tended to go with ones that are much lower profile. And so when it comes to the sapphire piece, she wore that one and the Württemberg pearl tiara, the ornate Württemberg pearl tiara. So she wore both of those, but she never wore the Stuart tiara, which is the biggest one within the collection. It has a 40-karat light blue diamond in it. And so it's a very important piece of the collection, but Queen Beatrix never wore it. But Queen Maxima, interestingly, also did not wear the Dutch sapphire. And I think that reflects that because Queen Beatrix could not handle the weight of the Stuart, she decided not to wear it. And she really only had two big guns to choose from. And one was the sapphire. And she's like, okay, Maxima, at some point you can wear this one, but not quite right now. So when it came time for King Wilhelm Alexander, Queen Beatrix's son, to inherit the throne, they call it an inauguration. And they have a history of abdication in the Dutch royal family. So Queen Beatrix abdicated. She became Princess Beatrix. And when it came to this very particular event, Queen Maxima debuted the tiara for the first time. And she had it altered by court jeweler Stealthman. And they created a higher profile for it. So it sits a little bit higher on the head. And she also had it be a bit lower. So actually almost more had a Kokoschnik design. So she didn't do the kind of, I want to call it the feather plume on top. She actually took that off and had a bit of a lower profile for it. Maxima is very well known for being very creative with her tiara and her jewelry. So that is the look she had for the inauguration, but she hasn't worn that particular look since, and she's gone with the plume after that point. I don't know why she didn't do it for his inauguration. I guess she was trying to keep it a bit more low profile. Not quite sure, because Maxima loves the bling and she looks good in the bling. And I love her bright blue dress. So she sort of matched her dress to the sapphires and the tiara. And the gentleman who designed that dress, his name is Jan. He has done some amazing work for Maxima. My favorite dresses of hers and some of my favorite royal dresses ever are his creations. So she looked absolutely wonderful and amazing. And as one other smaller note, Princess Margaret, who is the sister to Queen Beatrix, actually did wear a smaller version of this tiara at one point of time for the wedding gala of Grand Duke Henri of Luxembourg. And so there has been only one other, you could say much less prominent member of the family who has worn that particular tiara. I have a whole video on tiara politics, but depending on your place within the line of succession depends on how much you get access to in terms of the tiaras. And it also depends on the family, but generally the ones called the big guns are usually reserved for the queen. So we have an interesting question here. Since Queen Maxima loves the Stuart, she wears it quite frequently. And obviously, as well, Princess Catharina-Amalia has an absolute love and adoration for the tiaras within the family collection. She's actually done a lot of her own research. I think we have an interesting question to consider here is, will we see at one point Princess Catharina-Amalia wear the Dutch sapphire tiara before she becomes queen? Because obviously it has been worn by other women before they became queen. So it is not one that is strictly queen only, but seems to sort of be. So we shall see what that looks like in the future. But I am so excited and I absolutely love this tiara. It is such a gorgeous and interesting piece. The blue of the sapphires really pops. I would say they're sort of more of a bright blue instead of sort of the deeper blue that we saw with Catherine, the Princess of Wales's engagement ring. And so it is just again, a very, very unique piece within a family. One that I don't feel like we see too much of. There's some where we see sort of the similar styles, the Kokoshniks or the fringe, especially the fringe. There's some of them where they almost look exactly the same. But this tiara, it has such a sort of dynamic look. It has something where it really catches your eye, catches your attention. It has a very, very high profile. Not all tiaras do, even some impressive ones, like the Dutch diamond bandeau tiara, which actually sits very low and has massive diamonds on it, but doesn't have the height and the stature of the Dutch sapphire tiara. In fact, I would argue maybe it's one of the highest profile tiaras in Europe. The only one maybe that could compare is I think it's Queen Alexandra's or Queen Mary's, the Kokoshnik tiara that the Brits have has quite a high profile. But this tiara is just incredibly impressive. The craftsmanship is totally and completely one of a kind. And I think Maxima pulls it off excellently. She has worn it to state visits to Norway and to Denmark. And she wore a different tiara to Sweden because she obviously kind of paired similar tiaras to different countries. And so I don't know when we'll see her wear this next, but I'm looking forward to it. So I absolutely love Maxima's tiara appearances. Hopefully we get a state visit sometime this fall, a couple, at least one or two more, because they are fabulous. So guys, again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to get a subscribe and I shall see you soon. Bye.
We don't count the carats, we count the centuries.